Hey folks, I want to talk to you about this application Readeo. I strongly recommend Readeo to help grandparents and parents read to their grandchildren remotely when they can't be in the same room. Whether you're living across the country, across the world, or you're just gone on a business trip, Readeo makes it easy for you to read to those young ones when you're away. It's a super easy tool that allows for video monitoring across the top of the screen so they can see you and you can see them, as well as having the book prominently displayed, making it easy for you to read to those young ones, or better yet, having them read to you. What I want you guys to do is go to cool-grandpa.us, look for the affiliate link for Readeo, click on that link, and sign up today for your free trial. Welcome back. Hey, folks, when they've got a picture of a cool grandpa, the next guest that I have on my show, his image has got to be the first one that comes up. Our guest is James Lott Jr. Now, James, he does singing and acting. He's written over 20 books. He has a doctorate in divinity, and he started this JLJ Media. So he does all sorts of different activities on YouTube with his friends out in LA about all sorts of different topics. Some of those are like, think of it as the after show for a scripted TV program, like a General Hospital or other types of scripted programs, not just soap operas, but all sorts of different things that he's got going on. So what you guys are really going to be in for a treat listening to James and listening to us talk a little bit about New York back in the 80s and what was that like with James and his grandfather, and then me with my father and those experiences that we've shared together. So it's a little bit of a small world, and we've got some vastly different experiences, but then we've also got these things that make us connected, right? You guys are really going to enjoy this show, and let's go ahead and get on with it. Hello, and welcome to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. This is your host, Greg Payne, coming at you from Studio 12. This podcast is about being the best possible grandpa you can be, focusing on what it is to be a grandpa and how we can all share that experience together for our grandchildren. Hi, James. Welcome to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. I'm excited to sit down with James Lott Jr. And folks, I've been on his show. Really, I'm a grandparent. It's on YouTube, and I've got links that I'll put in the show notes for this. But James, I'm excited to be with you here tonight and talk about being a grandfather.
Grandfathers unite. Team Grandpa. Yes, exactly. Hashtag grandfathers. All the things. We had a great talk on my show, so I'm like, of course I'm ready to talk to you again. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's so great to talk about grandfather stuff, right? Because I feel like the grandmas have got all sorts of podcasts, all sorts of, media outlets and everything else, but there's not a whole lot for us grandfathers to jump in and wave our flags about.
No, and I had to talk with somebody about this the other day, actually, and they were saying, you're right. It's the grandmothers have a place in like society. They have a place in culture. And men, grandfathers and fathers, there needs to be more about us on some level, because we mostly get a bad rap most of the time, or just ignored. And I just feel like, for boys, for girls, they need male figures that are positive in their life. And for many of us, I had a wonderful grandfathers. I loved them both. And they were great to me. And so I know people have the same experiences. So I mean, you talk about grandfathers, they play a role just like grandmothers do. And it's just a different role. And I think it's a great role that you do play in our grandkids' lives.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I wanted to dive into as we get going, because I'd love to talk about your grandfathers, what are some of the things and lessons that you took from them? But I'd love to hear about your experience when the news broke that you were going to be a grandfather, because we're all different when we take in that news, right?
Yeah. So my listeners of my show, Really I'm a Grandparent, know the history of what I went through. It was not a fun experience for me. My daughter was underage and got pregnant. So that for the first time I became grandparents. So it was centered a lot of stuff centered around that. And why I started my podcast, because I became a grandparent in my 30s. I was very young.
Okay.
I was still raising my children myself, and then all of a sudden this grandparent thing come. Like, where did that come from? So I wasn't happy the first listen of that. But then eventually, of course, you lean into it, and I actually named my grandson. So I mean, we have a close relationship. But then with the second grandchild, just to kind of elaborate a little bit, the second one was much later, so that was like a happy occasion. The third one was we call them the Irish twins because that was not expected to happen so soon after she had the other one. So that was kind of surprising. She had each of the kids tell me. So my first grandson told me about the next baby coming, and the granddaughter told me about it was kind of like they were telling me the next one. And then this latest one, which I'm a new grandparent again as of 4 months ago, from a different daughter now. It's her first child. That was exciting. She had just got married last year during the pandemic. And so it's kind of like, oh, okay, like now it's your turn to start over. And for me as a grandparent, because now my first set of grandchildren are teenagers. They've grown out of the whole thing. I was like, I'm done. No, I'm not done. I'm starting over again. But this time I'm a little older this time. So it's so each time it's been a different experience. But I'm glad to be a grandfather.
Well, and that's great. And one of the things too I love hearing the story is that, so many of us have these experiences that, and sometimes life isn't always positive at first blush, but we have a choice on how we're going to react to that news, right? And, it's awesome that you leaned into it and then were there and supported your daughter and really embraced that role, even as a young whippersnapper in your 30s,
Yeah. I wasn't as mature yet either. I mean, I've gotten more mature since then in my 50s, but in my 30s, I was still growing up myself, and that's the thing. I had my kids young. Well, not that young, but I had my kids young. So I kind of got the young thing, but I'm sorry. I keep looking at your beautiful blue walls. Oh. I love that color blue. It's my favorite color blue. So I'm like, my ADD is kicking in. Okay.
Sure.
But yeah, you have to pick a choice. It's mindset. Everything's mindset. That's what I do for a living. I'm a life coach. Everything. So mindset's everything. And it's not the baby's fault. The baby's coming. The baby's coming whether you like it or not. It's coming. And I had to make a decision that I want to be part of the baby's life, and my daughter's. And so it's kind of like you just have to lean into it and go, okay, well, here we go, and we're going to do it. And we're not going to harp on it, and we're not going to keep pressing it. And do the best for the child. The child now is the number one importance.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and not even the child, but also your child that's going through this, right? Because there's still a whole lot of growth and support and everything else that child needs. So it's great. And what I love about it too is that there's a role for men in that situation. That we don't just back off of it. We don't just let mom or the aunts or whomever, but men still have a place, and fathers and grandfathers have a place in those situations. So that's awesome.
I was very involved, much to their chagrin. They didn't want me involved, but I was involved. And each of my daughter's pregnancies, I was involved. I mean, I was always, how you doing? You're checking in, how you doing? Again, we come from a different perspective than women do. We're men, so we just come from a different perspective. So we offer another side for our daughters or our sons who are expecting children.
Sure.
We offer a different side than a mother does. So it's like, I was there for her for support. I showed great support for all the pregnancies, but it's just different. Just different.
Oh, absolutely. And, I want to get back into talking about that role, but I'm also interested in hearing and learning about your grandfathers and their influence on you. So if you don't mind taking just a couple minutes, introduce them to us, tell us a little bit about their backgrounds, and then let's talk about your relationship with them.
So I had two grandfathers. that I knew. I lucked out. I had great grandparents too until I was like 25, but not great grandma, great grandmothers. But I had two grandfathers. One was Dutch, so from Holland. So for me, it was very interesting because I had this. I come from a mixed race family, so I had a white grandfather, and I growing up in the '70s, that was just not the common thing. It wasn't very common. No. So, and he was very, and being Dutch, I mean, anybody knows Dutch people, they're just dry sense of humor, but great sense of humor, dry sense of humor. But he was tall, blonde, blue eyed. And here I am looking like me and my sister's siblings looking like us. And having cousins on that side who look like him, and I have cousins look like me. Like, it was very interesting for us. Grew up in the '70s, it was very interesting. But he never treated us any differently. He was a little cantankerous. I kind of liked it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. He made funny jokes, but he was always kind of like, get off my lawn, the kind of grandfather. He was a very strong presence. Now, on the other side, my other grandfather is Puerto Rican and West Indian. So, and he's from New York. And Grandpa Bob was like, I mean, wore suits, and he worked for, I think, American Express. No, he worked for Chase Manhattan back then. And he wore suits, smoked a cigar. He smoked a cigar. He drank with that cigar. He ate with that cigar. He talked with that cigar. Whenever I smell cigar smoke, I'm like, that's Grandpa Bob. I totally can't get away. I look a lot like him. So I was always like, you look like your Grandpa Bob. So I got that, my looks from him. Dressed sharp all the time. He was a big spender. We always used to joke that he liked walking into places and they go, oh, Roberto, Robert, Bobby, whatever. They loved seeing him. And he was a talker and he was a charmer, but he was very strict grandfather. I loved him. We got along fine most of the time. A few times we got a little older, but he was very strict. He was just very much like it was his way and that's it. Very much just like, this is how it is, and it's how it is. But he supported me when I was younger and finding myself. He would call because I lived in LA, so I would see him several times a year. So I would go see him, and he would just took me around. He used to carry his big stick, and we'd go in because back when New York was like dirty.
Yeah,
he carried a big stick. It was like, James, stick by me, and I stick by him. We get on the subway, go downtown. He showed me off to all his coworkers. My grandson from LA is here, and so both of them, I loved them very much. They were a little on the old school, both fought in wars and both were just very much like ruled an iron fist, so to speak. But they mellowed a little bit with us grandkids. I know probably my parents on both sides have probably different stories about them as fathers, but as grandfathers, they treated me well. They treated me well. And I only have a few items each of their stuff. I have one of their rings. My grandfather in New York used to make leather satchels. Okay. So I have a couple of them. They're beautiful. I mean, just made back in the 60s or whatever. They're beautiful. I have them. I have some stuff from Holland from my grandfather. So I only have a few things from each of them that I hold on to. But they both were a trip, and they both could talk. That's where I got it from. They both could charm the ladies, charm men, charm kids, grandmas. They were, and I like to think I'm that way too.
Oh, I can just picture Grandpa Bob. My dad worked in Manhattan at Citibank and was in the mid 80s, and how everything was going on, and I'd hear stories afterwards about that kind of environment in the financial sector during that time. And I can just picture, Grandpa Bob walking into the place. And just like you said, right? Hey, Bob, Roberto, come on over here. We're going to have some drinks. Come on over. Yes. Tell us these stories. It's awesome because that brings back memories of my dad being up there and things. So
my Grandpa Bob, he was an honorary Italian. Apparently, the Italians loved him. I say he probably knew the mob. I probably knew the mob, and I didn't even know anything about it. They loved him. All their hair was slicked back. Everybody's hair was slicked back when I met him. I was just like this teenager, kid, looking at him. Hey, kid, how you doing? Like, here's a 20, whatever. They like go over there or whatever.
Right.
And I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they were doing, but they just loved it. Their eyes just lit up when he came in, he was like the life of the party. Like, he just come in and that was it. I mean, but he worked hard. He had a job, and my grandmother worked at American Express in World Trade Center 7. So she was down there. She was working hard. He was working hard, until they retired. They both retired. But yeah, he was completely that banker, financial guy that just, he looked the part, he dressed the part, he drank the part, he did all that.
Oh yeah, he probably had some friends up there in Brooklyn Heights, and he knew the block where you could, the folks up there kept certain blocks safe, right? Yes. You could park a car, you could walk down the street. If anybody hassled you, word would get back to some folks, and then you wouldn't get hassled again.
Well, I'll tell you, my grandfather was in Fort Hamilton Parkway and over there in Park Slope. That's in Brooklyn. So that's where they were. So, but he's originally they're from Spanish Harlem.
Okay.
So 101st and Lexington up there. But the last 30 years they settled in Brooklyn. So me growing up, I always went to Brooklyn. I went to Manhattan for one half of the family, and then people who don't know this. Back in the day, if you're from Manhattan, you didn't go to Brooklyn. If you're in Brooklyn, you always stayed in your boroughs. You didn't really go anywhere. But I always crossed the F train, for me it was, up to Fort Hamilton Parkway and over there, and it was right near Prospect Park, and that's where they lived until they died. So that's, he was something else. But they both were something else. And it's funny because I just recently went to the Van Gogh museum experience here in LA, and with my Dutch cousins, and so it was kind of fun. I have Dutch memories. And my grandfather's favorite saying, which is a very famous Dutch saying, "It ain't much, but it ain't Dutch." He would say it all the time. Well, that's nothing. This over here, that's good. But that over there, it ain't much, but it ain't Dutch. That was just always his saying. They say it all the time. And when I say it to other Dutch people, they totally get it. So I even have memories about him and his Dutchness. I mean, he always kept that, even though he was in America and for, I guess, over half his life, or most of his life, or half his life. He still kept that Dutchy thing.
Oh, sure. I love it. And I'd spent over 3 months in Netherlands, and
okay, good.
So I worked with the Dutchies, and picked up some of the lingo and a little bit over there, and absolutely love those guys. Very forthright, and like you said, dry sense of humor, but they're not afraid to tell you if you got a little piece of broccoli in your teeth.
Nope, they don't. They don't. That's where I get it from. I know that's where I get it from. Look at the combination I have: a New Yorker and a Dutch person. That's my history. Like I have no filter. So that's just completely like that.
Yep. Now, what are some of the things that you, taking a minute to think back on your grandfathers, what are some of the lessons and what are some of the things that you maybe are bringing forward to your role as a grandfather?
A great question. One of them is be involved. No matter where you live, my grandkids live 400 miles away from me. They're in Sacramento, California. I'm in LA. For a while, I was in San Francisco, so I was like maybe an hour or two away from them. So it was a little closer. Northern California, a little closer. But now I'm in Southern California. The thing is, you make the time. You make the time to make them feel special. You make the time to hang out with them. Make the time to make trips to them or have them come to you. That's what my grandfathers did. They whether back then it was phone calls. You made phone calls, right? Nowadays you go visit or text. Three of my grandchildren have phones, so I can text them now. But that was something I took away from that. I wanted memories with them. I want them to have memories with me. I'm Papa Jamie. That's the name we chose. That's because when I became grandfather, like, no, I'm not grandpa. I'm not grandfather. Not Gramps. Even though they joke around and say it to me now, and I don't mind so much. But Papa back then was a newer term when I became a grandfather. There wasn't, nowadays they use it more, but I was like, yeah, I'm Papa Jamie. And Jamie sounded close to Daddy and that kind of stuff, so it was kind of close. So I took from my grandfathers, be present. And where they are, my grandchildren, I'm their only grandfather.
Okay.
Both my grandchildren's fathers, all my grandchildren's grandfathers were all passed. I'm the last one. So they have plenty of grandmothers. They have plenty of great-grandmothers. They have plenty of aunties. I was like, my role is the male role. I have to have that presence, whether I'm there once a month, once every 3 months, on the phone, whatever it is. That's what I took away from my grandfathers. Because even though they didn't live in LA, I still saw them, talked to them, and I have memories with them.
Oh,
that was a big thing for me.
That's great because it's almost the theme of the show is that you know, grandmas and moms, aunts, those folks can give a certain amount of attention and nurturing and things, but those kids, boys and girls, they need a male role model, and they need a male influence. I mean, it can be stuff about, working on cars. It could be different things, but our humor is different from moms, right? And sometimes that gets us in trouble. But,
oh yeah, of course.
They get certain things from grandfathers and dads that's important for their growing up, whether they're little girls or little boys. And
I agree. That's the thing. We have a different sensibility. We bring a different, like I said, humor. I roughhouse with my grandkids, where my grandmothers aren't going to. They're not going to do that. The chicks are not going to do that. I get down with them. I can do silly jokes with the boys. Like things that, they make me laugh. They do things that are literally what boys do. I mean, I grew up watching Three Stooges and all that stuff, and I was a true boy. Played with Tonka trucks when they were metal, folks, not with the plastic ones. I can imagine when they were metal. I climbed trees. I played sports, and even though my granddaughter plays a lot of sports and everything too, and I'm very close to her. But I was saying, especially with the boys, I had two girls. So I didn't have boys. I didn't raise any boys. So this is my chance to really be in with boys. And there's things that we do that are silly and and immature, and they make me laugh. My youngest grandson Riley just makes me laugh. He does the stupidest stuff, and me and his father both just bust up laughing. And my daughter's like, "Oh my god! Like, what are you guys laughing at him for?" I'm like, "You wouldn't get it. You just wouldn't get it."
Right.
It's a guy thing. And so so I do. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. Now, how are you taking this role as grandfather? And how are you now supporting the daughters with raising the kids? And we've got the relationship with the grandkids, but our relationship even as fathers with those growing daughters or sons or what people have, how are you now transitioning to that grandfather, older parent role? And how are you supporting them?
Great question. It's hard. I tell people all the time, it's hard watching your children parent. I say it all the time. It doesn't matter. They could be great people. It does not matter, because you have your way of parenting, and now you're watching whatever their way of parenting is going to be. And sometimes it may not align with how you would do it. So I've had to learn and finesse my language as it's gone. I've had a long time to do this. So this latest grandchild is very lucky. All the other grandkids, it was all, I had to work out the kinks with them. Kind of crazy. With my daughter, so I'll talk about my main daughter, because the other one just came later. But because I was still raising the other daughter when the first grandchild came, I had to really navigate the attention, because my other daughter was 10 or 11 when he was born. So it's like, it's almost like having a younger sibling.
Right.
It's almost like they got a younger sibling. No, it's their, I was confused. It's her nephew. That's right. It's her nephew. Yes, it's her nephew. But you didn't call her Aunt Monica or anything. We make jokes about that later. It's your Aunt Monica. And they love each other, and they're close because they're close in age. Actually, so it's kind of funny. But it was like I had to find a way. And I have an uncle who's 2 years older than me.
Okay.
So I kind of use that example of like, he's my uncle. Yeah, he's like a cousin. Like he's like a sibling. I watched them give him attention and me attention at the same time. So it's almost like when I grabbed her, I had to grab him too and give them both attention and kind of help them become close. So it was really tough for a while because I was still raising a child. Once she became 18, what happened was when my daughter had the second and third, she had 3 kids, and I'd come to town, and literally all my attention would go to them because they were just all of a sudden, they don't see me all the time. So it's like, oh, Papa Jamie. She got jealous.
Okay.
I got upset because she was like, where's our time together? And actually I was like, you know what? I never even thought of that. Like it was like, I thought I was doing okay, but I wasn't. She was right. But it was a tough story. It was like I was wrong. It was just a tough story. It's like the kids need they're babies, they're kids. They want my attention. They're going to see me for what, a weekend or a week, however long I'm going to be there. I just can't help it. But she did need her attention of her daddy. She still needed her daddy, even though she's grown. She wanted that time to go because we did have our own things, and we did. So what we had to do is during my visits, we scheduled time apart from everybody else. It may mean don't tell them what time Papa Jamie's coming in. Because like, if you tell them he's coming in at 9 o'clock in the morning, they're like, where's he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? They already ask him. So I say, he'll be in later today. And then she picks me up at the airport. We go have breakfast and drinks and kind of hang out together. And I catch up with them, we talk. And then it's like, unleash the Kraken. I go to the kids. But we had to really work on that because, you know, I didn't realize that I was actually hurting her feelings. But she knew it wasn't like this intentional thing.
Right.
It just that I'm like, well, you had children. I didn't tell you to have children. All you decided to have kids. And I'm sorry they love me. No. But that was kind of the thing, was that we had to figure out a way to still cultivate our relationship and then the kids. And then plus she has a man. So, and I'm trying to learn him too, and figure out who he is. I like him. I like their father, Mike. I like him a lot. So it was like I had to kind of support that. Well, the first kid had a different father, and the father died.
Okay.
So I had to support that situation, support her and my grandson with that. And then when she got the new man, and they got together, not together like 15 years, we got a long time, but I like him. I actually like him. I like his family, like him. So then I had to feel like, okay, when I go to Sacramento, I got 3 kids wanting my attention, the father wanting my attention, my daughter wanting my attention, plus my other daughter over here wants to see us, of course, and then her in-laws, my son-in-law's mother and them, we love each other. Miss Patty, we all love each other. So we're like, want to get to, it's like, so it's sometimes it's tough. It's tough. But I've tried over the last 15, 16 years trying to navigate what that is. And now I have a new grandchild. So now I'm trying to support my other daughter in a way that's beyond schooling or going to college. She's a parent. So it's like, so now I'm trying to support her and her husband. So I don't know. I don't know how, Greg, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out somehow. But I got 2 daughters, 4 grandchildren, 2 son-in-laws. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Well, I love that because the thing that jumps to mind for me is that, hey, moms, grandmas, we're trying to figure out this role ourselves, and we don't necessarily have all the answers because there's no manual for us, and to your point, you didn't know that you were inadvertently hurting your daughter when you were showing the grandkids all this attention. It took a little while and probably a little smack upside your head from your daughter before you figured it out. And we're like, oh, okay, I need to have some, division of time and some scheduling and not just show up and then whoever's, the loudest or climbing on me gets my attention.
Yes, that's what it is. And with her, she did have questions. Or even the son-in-laws, they want to talk to you about something because they're trying to figure out their father roles.
Yeah. Well, and I just got back from spending time with my kids, and I actually needed to bounce some stuff off of my son with stuff that's going on in my life, and we've all got that, right? And you've got the son-in-laws that need maybe a father's perspective or somebody who's not their father's perspective.
Yes.
And it's like, and sometimes it's just a sanity check. Hey, am I thinking about this situation right? And, as much as we think it's all fun and games with being a grandfather, man, that mentor role that we have it is really important. And to be able to spend time and focus time. And that's another thing I took away from what you were just saying is making sure that we're intentional for that breakfast with your daughter when you fly into town. So you can hear that situation. And then if she needs more time, you can carve more time out maybe in the evening, or at least that the phone call coming on Tuesday after you get back in town, we need to spend time and have that conversation.
Yeah, Christmas Eve was always our time, especially during Christmas, because Christmas was crazy. There's all these family members that are going on. So Christmas Eve, Papa Jamie would have his glass of whiskey, sitting in the chair, while she put together all the presents. I don't put together nothing. I'm not a handyman. She does all that, so she's putting the bikes together, and that was our time together to check in, catch up, have a laugh. I'd watch her do it, and I was proud of her. I'm like, you're doing this, because her man would go to sleep, and the kids would go to sleep. Everybody goes to sleep, so that was always our time together. We always knew that at least Christmas Eve, we would have that quiet time before all the shenanigans happened on Christmas morning. And then Christmas Day with the dinners and stuff. So that was always our time. sure too. But it's very intentional. You have to really, well, it's like any relationship, right? You have to make sure you're in it. You can't neglect anybody. But it's easy when there's kids, because kids have no rule book. Kids don't follow. They're happy to see me. They're just like, when Papa Jamie's here, he'll play with us. That's all they care about. They don't care about drive time with homegirl, or they're climbing on you, they're talking to you, they're hugging on you, and that's all they care about. And so I want to hug on them and talk to them, and I want to find out, what are you doing at school? What's going on here? They want to show me their pictures. I mean, I want the interaction, because I said earlier, I'm trying to grow the memories with them, because I'm not there all the time. So I don't want them to forget about me, so to speak. Not saying they would, but my brain just thinks, well, every time I come, I want their brain to go, oh, Papa Jamie's coming. It's a good thing. And just always remember that. But I had to remember I have children still too, and they need the attention also. So it's crazy.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing I like too is, in talking with some other grandfathers, what you're describing a little bit in terms of these memories, some other folks have talked about that, is the legacy, right? Because you think about, and I never like to think about this, is, okay, when I'm gone, what are those grandkids going to remember? Are they going to remember me throwing the 3-year-old over the couch and getting on the ground and wrestling with him? And, that time where, when Grandpa came into town, he would take me to breakfast, and that was our time. And so it's great that you're thinking about that in terms of those memories and that legacy. And I think that's something that grandfathers ought to think about a little bit as you start to come into this role, is what are some of those memories that the grandkids are going to have with you?
Well, here's the thing. It's funny for me. Then I know we have to add into the factor that I'm in the public eye. I'm also on television. I'm in radio. I'm in podcasts. I'm with celebrities. I'm fully in Hollywood. They know who I am. So I was talking about this latest grandchild, Trent, who's 4 months old. All he's ever going to know is that Papa Jamie is semi-famous. The other grandkids saw the beginning of it, and so they knew me before and now after. So a lot of times they're like, yeah, I saw that. I heard your new song. And my grandson recited my song to me. It was kind of cool. Or my granddaughter was like, yeah, I saw you with that. You talked to so-and-so. Oh my God, I love that. But so they kind of know their grandfather is somebody. They kind of know that. So it adds another layer to stuff, because there's times I can't make events because I'm doing the Emmys, or I'm doing this, or I can't, or the Oscars, or I can't come down because I'm on a red carpet. So that's been tough too. I have to navigate that too, because it's not just, my job isn't 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. My job is seasonal too. It depends on, I'm at a Hallmark Channel thing or event. So part of it is they don't care. I mean, part of it is just like, I'm just Papa Jamie, just when are you going to see you again? My granddaughter always says, I don't care what you're doing, when we're going to see you again. That's all they care about. But they're aware that I have albums out and books out, and they know that. But this new grandson, all he's going to know is Papa Jamie is always interviewing a celebrity, or he's like over here, or he's at a red carpet. So it's going to be very interesting to see actually what my legacy will be. Will they look at me and go, wow, my grandfather was famous and he did stuff and he was a go-getter. And I wonder if they'll get that from this. But they also have a video diary of me. When I leave, click on Google, go on YouTube. You get to see me for the rest of their lives, which to me actually is a very loving, I feel very fortunate about that. And you do the same thing for your grandkids. You have a podcast. And so at least there's a slight diary of what you were doing, where my grandparents is just pictures.
Yeah.
I have a few pictures of them and that's it. I have my memories, but in terms of lasting, tangible stuff, we're creating something for our grandkids that they can have for the rest of, they can download and have for the rest of their lives. I mean, they get a time capsule of whatever it is we're doing. So that for me has been kind of like, I've been thinking about that a lot, going, wow, I mean, I'm creating a legacy period for myself and for the world, but also my grandkids will be the recipients also of that, good or bad. They're going to hear whatever, like, oh my God, my grandfather did, well, he dressed as a taco and let's make a deal. That's crazy. Like they're going to get it all. They're going to get it all. So it's be interesting. It'll be interesting for them.
Well, and it's great too that you're talking about that, because that's also where they're going to be able to show their kids right? When we're gone, it's like, hey, here's what Grandpa Jamie sounded like, and here's what he looked like, and it doesn't have to be just their description. It's like, hey, don't just believe, take my word for it. Let's Google and find these videos. And that's an incredible.
They can hear us.
Yeah, absolutely. And hear what's on our mind at the time, right? Hear are these discussions. Hear about talking about, man, am I going to be a good grandfather or not? Am I, doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Am I doing, and then encouraging other men to step up and take this role and run with it.
Yeah, and but have you ever thought about that though? About you doing this podcast, literally, it's a legacy to your grandchildren and their children and their children and their children. Have you ever thought about
that? Just a little bit, but not necessarily in terms of how we're just doing it. So there's a little space in the back of my mind that's like, holy crap, this is going to keep me up at night, thinking about it tonight in a good way. But one of those like, oh yeah, I need to really make sure I save these things off on the hard drive, right? And nurture this stuff so that they have it.
Well, I do so much that it's online. They can just Google my name and literally, and so it must be, and for folks like an Elvis, and he has grandchildren, and it must be interesting for people who just when Michael Jackson's kids have kids, they can say your grandfather was Michael Jackson. When Madonna's kids have kids, your grandmother was Madonna. Like it's going to be very interesting that they do the same for me and the same for you. Your grandfather was James Lott Jr. or your great grandfather was James Lott Jr. Let me show you. They can see me wearing a wig in one episode. We're making fun of somebody, or me wearing a Santa hat playing Santa and something. Or I've done movies, I've done television, I've been on shows. Like they get a chance to really see kind of a well-rounded view of me, the good, bad, ugly, me crying on TV, we can see all kind of stuff. And so it'll be interesting to see what they think. It'll be interesting to see I was watching a documentary the other day on Rick James, of people. Of course, he's famous. Everybody knows who James was.
Yeah.
His granddaughters are talking about him, their favorite songs of his. And I thought that was very interesting that they're like, this is not his children, but his grandchildren who are grown, who the last time I saw their grandfather before he died, they were little kids. The legacy is still there. They are the descendants of Rick James. I mean, it's just something they can't run from.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's always been kind of interesting as Hollywood's become multi-generational.
Yes.
So you go back to like Douglas Fairbanks,
yes,
and then his kids, and then his grandkids that were, I think his grandson was a photojournalist or a journalist, and how that perpetuates on, and you're able to take a piece of film or take something and show that. So in this media, we're lucky that we have this kind of, fingerprint that we leave those kids.
We don't like Lionel Barrymore, the Barrymores, all the way down to Drew.
Mm-hmm.
That's something else. Again, we're talking about Elvis. Elvis had Lisa Marie. Lisa Marie had Riley Keough, who's doing lots of films. There's, you got people like, Tippi Hedren had Melanie Griffith. Melanie Griffith had Dakota Johnson. Her father's Don Johnson. Like, you're right, this whole multi-generational, this stuff is happening. I talked to the grandson of Mary Tyler Moore the other day. He's on a soap opera. So it's like, he's the grandson of Mary Tyler Moore, not the son, but the grandson. So it's like, it's completely like this whole, it's like, you're right. It's like, it's kind of, it can keep going. And with all this celluloid and film and recordings, it can be passed down very easily. Then just a picture may get lost, or a memory may get lost. You don't remember anymore. You don't know. So it makes it a little easier. And so I think for my grandkids, for your grandkids, great grandkids, it'd be interesting to see what they do think of us when we're gone.
Oh yeah. Well, and the thing is too, is with grandfathers that don't have podcasts or video channels or something like that, take advantage of what you have, whether it's your iPhone or whether it's, start up your own Zoom meeting and occasionally just sit down and talk to the grandkids and leave that recording, leave that there, because it's something that they'll be able to look back to. Like you said, we've got still pictures, maybe we got some Super 8 without sound, something like that. But we've got an opportunity with the technology to leave a little bit more of ourselves for the future generations. So,
and hopefully we inspire them, because some kids and grandkids will go, I love podcasting. This is a thing now, so this could totally happen in the future. Where did I get my love for podcasting? Oh my God, I'm just like my grandfather. We say this like all the time. There's certain things that I like. I go, that's my grandfather. So this is now a different thing where I go, I love being a host. Wow, I just like my grandfather. Like I actually look at him and I sound like him, you know. So it's been very interesting to see again how this is going to play out in terms of our legacies.
Yeah.
Our legacy.
Now, James, as we start to wrap this up, we've talked an awful lot about, you know, our experiences as young grandfathers and where we are now. But what's some of the advice that you have for, let's say, a new grandfather, somebody that's just hearing the news that they're going to be a grandpa, or maybe they're just a couple of months or a year or so into this thing?
Part of the reason why I have my podcast, really, I'm a grandparent, is part of that. Part of that is we talk to people we talk about how you became a grandfather. What did you, or grandmother, what did you do? How did it feel? I give tips. I have episodes where I just give tips and say, these are things I wish I knew before I became a grandfather. You know, I think things like that. And they're fun, but they are really true tips. So part of it is my podcast. Part of it is doing that podcast. It's part of so listen to my podcast, folks, and then you'll get some ideas. But one of my things I would say is, do not minimize your role. It can be just as important as every other role in the family, meaning you're just as important as the grandmother, the mother, the father, the other grandparents. Also, just be there and support your children if you can. It's not your child, it's their child. Sometimes you should show restraint, see how it plays out. If you do see something that you think is really, you should always say something. But I mean, a lot of times our egos get in the way. So we have to, as grandfathers and as men, we want to fix. That's what men do. We fix. Sometimes it's not our job to fix. Let the father fix it. You know, let him, you know, play. We should really support the father role too, and empower them to be great fathers, be great dads. That's kind of what we should do, and empower our daughter or daughter-in-laws to be great moms. Instill strength in them. Support. You know, I'm here if you need me. I'm here. You know, make yourself available if you can, but really just and enjoy it. It's like really, it's fun. It's not your child. You can give it back. It's like so wonderful. I guess I have a family tree with branches after me. That's what's so weird to me. Like this child, like my latest grandchild, looks kind of like me a little bit. Like I see the resemblance, and you know, it's like that. There's me in there. You know, I see my daughter definitely in there, but there's me in there, and that is such a wonderful, warm feeling, and it just feels good. I love being called Papa Jamie. I love it. I couldn't. So I say enjoy it. Enjoy it. It can be a fun experience. You can impart some of your wisdom, some of your traditions. Don't be afraid to do that. Always try to be in communication with the parents. Always try to be on at least a similar side to them. If you can't be on the same side, at least a similar side to them. Try to show a united front if they need that. So I'll leave it. Like I say at the time, I'll leave with that. I'll leave you with those folks. There's more, but that's sort of things that I've learned. I don't want to confuse anybody. That's what I learned.
Yeah, and folks, once again, it's James Lott Jr. and that's JLJ Media, and we're going to be putting links to his YouTube channel and everything, so you guys can get into here, and then check out the show, the Really I'm a Grandparent. I mean, I had a blast being on that, and like James said, he's talking to grandparents and he's learning all this grandparent stuff like I am. And folks, it's a great resource. So, you know, jump in, it'll be entertaining, and you might just learn something.
No, thank you for saying that. And FeedSpot magazine, which features us every week when I put out a show, they vote us one of the top 20 grandparent podcasts of 2021. I was shocked. I couldn't, when the founder sent me the message, I was like, what? I didn't know that existed. But there are grandparent groups, Grand Magazine. There's a lot of things online on Facebook, and apparently we were voted one of the top 20. So I was very happy about that. And they feature us every time we put a new episode out. So I want to give a shout out to feedspot.com for sure, because they're wonderful. But thank you for saying that. Cool, Gramps, Jeffrey. I love it. I mean, because I love talking about grandparent stuff. I do. I love it.
Yep. Well, I do too. And James, this has been awesome talking to you. And, we'll have to jump back on another conversation again soon. So.
Yes,
All right.
I'd love that.
All right, man. Hang on just a sec and we'll say goodbye properly off the air. Wow, what a great conversation with James. I really enjoy the energy that he brings to these conversations, both when I was on his show and then, of course, while he was on the Cool Grandpa podcast. James is such an awesome dude to get to know. It's been a treat. One of the biggest things that stood out to me in this conversation was when James had talked about not minimizing your role as a grandfather. I think sometimes we can feel out of place, not sure where we need to be in the family dynamic. And I think James and I both want to make sure that grandpas know that, we do a lot more than just, pick up the bill at dinner and write some birthday checks. Our impact with our kids, our adult kids, is huge. And the impact that we can have with the grandchildren is huge. So don't minimize that and don't take it for granted if you have a grandfather in the family dynamic. Make sure that you're doing what you need to make sure that he's stepping up and is helping out with the family as much as possible, and invite him to be more engaged if maybe he's not. What was your favorite takeaway from this conversation? Be sure to send me an email at greg@cool-grandpa.com and let me know what your big takeaway was. I'll be sure to share that with James. So until next time, remember to stay cool. Thank you for listening to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and share it with a friend. That's the best way you can help us to expand our community, as well as get the news out about how valuable grandpas are in the lives of those kids. If you'd like to leave me a comment or shoot me a potential topic for this podcast, please go to www.cool-grandpa.us. Look for the comments tab, fill it out, hit submit. It's as easy as that. Until next time, remember to stay cool.